All right, well, another practice, and the pads were on again with some really physical play from the linebackers. And despite Vic Fangio being non-committal at the position, why could we expect more blitzing? Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts continues to handle just about everything thrown his way as he threw another dime to Johnny Wilson. And the Eagles got hit with a few injuries, but thankfully it looks like Philly dodged a bullet. However, does that bring up a potential issue? Let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? So quick update. We're about 6,000 subscribers from me selecting one random person out of the first 75,000 subscribers to win this Isaiah Rodgers signed helmet. Now, let me just say thank you for all the support, because you guys are the best, not that you didn't know that already. But rookie guard Trevor Keegan got to experience it firsthand at the Eagles open practice on Thursday at the Linc, with him admitting he even got a little emotional, saying, I don't know how many people were there, but it was louder than Michigan Stadium without a doubt. It was rockin'. And heck yeah, the fact that 50,000 Birds fans can reach a louder decibel level than 110,000 Maize and Blue supporters at the Big House is crazy. Yes, I realize the actual average decibel levels for those stadiums probably doesn't live up to the claim, but still, it's no less pretty cool that he said that. However, it wasn't just the Rooks who were speechless.
For a practice to have 50,000 fans is truly insane. So thank you to all those fans that came out and showed love and support. That's big. It helps us as a team, man, and it makes us want to go out there. It's like it kind of get like a college feel again. Like when I was in college, like you didn't want no one to come to Beaver Stadium and get a win there. You get that feel here. It's like you know how much every week is, but how much more it even means when you're playing in the Linc. So like I said, thank you to everyone that showed up, but it definitely meant a lot, and you can just see how much love and support the fans have for not only our team, but all the teams in the city.
It's no wonder Saquon's so hyped to be in Philly. Plus, let's be real, it's not just the home games, because it's Eagles everywhere. Like, for example, Jalen Hurts being the guy in the commercial to advertise flag football making its way to the Olympics for the 2028 games in Los Angeles. I mean, come on, you gotta admit that's pretty cool that he got that endorsement. Anyway, in more here and now news, the Eagles signed a linebacker, with Adam Schefter breaking the news of former Jaguars free agent Shaquille Quarterman agreeing to a one-year deal. But yeah, I'm with you that the last Shaq linebacker didn't necessarily work out. Yet it shouldn't be too surprising, since remember, Quarterman previously worked out at Philly's rookie minicamp back in May. By the way, in order to make a spot for the 26-year-old, the Eagles ended up waiving O-lineman Jason Poe. Again, this isn't really an earthshaker or really even someone who's going to compete for starting reps. I mean, seriously, just look at the snap counts for his first 4 seasons, and I think it's fairly obvious that Quarterman is at best a depth piece, with some potential on special teams. But it does bring into question the idea of Oren Burks' knee injury potentially being more serious than originally thought. Now, having said that, Vic Fangio has remained adamant that nothing is set in stone with any of the linebackers. Although, I think most of us can read the tea leaves based on the reps and which linebackers actually have a chance to make some noise. Regardless, though, Fangio knows linebacker play is vital.
I think every defense in the NFL relies on high-level production from the ILBs, especially with the way the game's being played now. ILB used to be a position where you somewhat could overachieve and be a tough guy, you know, because but when the fullback disappeared and he's been replaced by a third wideout or a second tight end that's a good receiver, the game's played in space more. But yet they still run the ball a good deal. So the ILB position has become a more demanding position in this last decade or so, and it's hard not to play good defense without good ILB play.
It is interesting that for the longest time, Howie Roseman didn't actually invest his money or his time in that position, but, you know, I mean, meeting with Fangio and having his thoughts on the defense, it's kind of changed him a little bit. And kudos to Howie for listening to Vic and being willing to change in those areas. Granted, I don't know that we'd say the Eagles linebacker unit is Pro Bowl level yet, however, the potential's there. Because as Anthony DeBona pointed out, David Long Jr., Duke Riley, and Jerome Baker were Miami's primary rotation at inside linebacker for the Dolphins under Vic Fangio. And for those counting, they rushed the passer on 12% or more of their passing snaps in 2023. Which, for the sake of comparison, Philadelphia's inside linebackers rushed the passer at a significantly lower rate last season, with Zach Cunningham being 9.5%, Nicholas Moro 7.3%, and Nakobe Dean 5.9%. Which could be exactly why the Eagles signed guys like Devin White, while also moving Zack Baun to inside linebacker and drafting Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Because as Anthony points out, White has never had a pass rush percentage lower than 16% in his NFL career, and Baun has never had lower than 18% in his NFL career. Plus, Trotter Jr. never had lower than 18.9% at Clemson. And then also, Nakobe was an elite blitzer in college as he never had lower than 15.5%. Yet hasn't been asked to do much of it in Philadelphia. So sure, a lot of it comes down to coverage, but there's definitely some potential when it comes to pressure. Much like the D-line, which is certainly an area both DC and GM agree upon. In particular, the potential of Milton Williams.
I like Milt. Milt's a good player. He's solid, both versus the run and in pass rush. He's a guy that I've, from afar, have liked that the Eagles have had. In fact, I tried to get us to trade for him last year in Miami, but Howie wouldn't do it. But I like Milt. Milt's a pro.
Well, there you go. If there was ever a doubt, that's a positive sign for Milton Williams, especially for his chances of seeing meaningful reps, which for the record, I don't think many of us were doubting. But when you see what Fangio's been able to do with other defensive tackles to help them break out and have career seasons, my money's on Williams. And honestly, Howie's probably should be too. Not that it isn't, with a couple rumors floating around that an attempt toward an offer has been made. Yet understandably, the speculation is that Milton's betting on himself this season because breaking out in Fangio's defense is extremely possible. I mean, look, honestly, I would love it if Milton and the Eagles can come to an agreement to lock him up long term. However, the way this thing feels that it's playing out is that Milton's betting on himself, as he should be. I mean, I don't blame him. Get as much money as you can. Of course, my hope is that Howie brought in the big guns to help negotiate a deal in Big Dom and Jason Kelce, who was at practice. But even though that's clearly not actually the case, it's always a great day seeing Kelce back at the facility. Plus, with the pads on, I'm sure he wanted to get a good look at how things are coming together for the squad, with a particular interest in the ongoing right guard battle taking place. However, as big of a surprise as Jason's appearance might have been, seeing both Tyler Steen and Mekhi Becton suit up was a little more unexpected. Especially Tyler Steen, since Jeff McClain had reported he'd miss up to 3 weeks with an ankle injury. Yet given some injuries and building momentum for Becton at starting right guard, that ankle ain't no problem anymore.
Sir, where should we send the ambulance?
Send it to the frickin' moon, idiot.
Look, I can understand the motivation, and to his credit, Steen was back there getting some tips from Lane, as was Becton, who it's worth noting was returning from a missed practice due to an illness. However, both guys were ready to put in the work, yet it was Becton who ended up getting the first rep, with the Mountain even getting so amped up on one block that Chris Franklin said he literally pushed center Dylan McMahon to the ground. Like, it is understandable since you've got everyone watching that competition. Also, even though not as many people are probably watching this portion, apparently according to ESP, Jalen Hurts began practice only 26 attempts from a new training camp record of consecutive throws without an interception. But yeah, I'm with you, it's literally just training camp and it doesn't mean anything. So honestly, my only takeaway is cool, he's definitely having a great camp, but even Jalen wouldn't care about any kind of practice record. However, I do have a bit of a double standard when it comes to kicker tackling drills. Yes, I literally just said kicker tackling drills. As Jake Elliott and punter Braid Mann got in work to brush up the wrap-up skill. I mean, honestly, I don't know if that's something I'll get used to, but it does make sense. Because remember, like Dean Blandino said in a recent interview, kickers are going to be asked to tackle more and be more involved thanks to the new kickoff rules. Even still, I get practicing it and Jake's the GOAT, but maybe let's leave it to the other guys, as they were also getting in some work with special teams drills. Meanwhile, several of the offense went through the car wash ball security drill, with Sirianni praising details and fundamentals, and Saquon finishing up admitting to Dallas Goedert that rep hurt. Although now that I said hurt, the Birds' official injury list got a little better from last practice, but still had Oren Burks out with a knee, Paris Campbell dealing with his groin, Mekhi Garner in a hamstring injury, Brandon Smith with a concussion, and then limited participants of Mekhi Becton, Josh Jobe, Eli Ricks, and Tyler Steen. And then as expected, one-on-one drills began with the usual winners, with Martin Frank sharing that AJ Brown routed up Slay so bad that he fell down. But let's not get carried away, because all the DBs have gotten beat at least a time or two.
I forgot really how good AJ and Devontae is. You know, I watched them throughout the year, but it's not really, it don't hit you till you're in front of them and actually have to guard them. So that's one thing. It definitely helps. You know, going against the best guys in the league, you know, it makes your game a lot easier when it's time to go against other guys across the league, because you're going against the best of the best, you know, even through walkthroughs and day in and day out, and just picking their brains and understanding, you know, what I'm doing wrong and them telling me, you know, what to do better. So they definitely make my game a lot better.
By the way, for those doubting Slay or waiting to pounce on that one bad rep, Ruben Frank would disagree, saying recently that Slay is having an outstanding camp and looks fast and healthy, which is notable because he had knee surgery in December and clearly wasn't anywhere close to 100% when he came back for the Tampa playoff game. But Rube says Slay's giving AJ and Smitty good work every single day. So who knows how long the 33-year-old can keep it up, but still his veteran presence and leadership and really just making plays shouldn't be overlooked. Plus, it's not like others didn't get beat, with Quinyon Mitchell having some good reps, but also, like Brandon Lee Gowton pointed out, Devontae Smith made 2 great catches against Q. One on a leaping grab and the other on a nice slant despite Q being right there in coverage. However, the defense had some wins of its own, with Jalen Carter obliterating the O-line on consecutive reps. One against Max Sharping and the other I really couldn't find out who that rep was against. And then Tyler Hall finally got his name called by picking off a pass from Tanner McKee in one-on-ones, which was especially exciting for the defensive coordinator, with Vic admitting they needed to probably get a few more takeaways. So, having wrapped up play there, the Eagles moved to the team portion of drills, where Bleeding Green Nation shared that the first team defense was Isaiah Rodgers at cornerback for his 4th straight day and winning that count 5-3 for those keeping track. Meanwhile, Zack Baun and Devin White maintained their control over the starting spots. By the way, the other area to mention is that Mekhi Becton was the one who started at right guard over Tyler Steen, despite Steen suiting up. which normally I would say is a huge deal, except for the fact that it was later revealed that Steen didn't even participate in team drills, so I don't know, you can't really take that. You gotta take it with a grain of salt, I guess, for Mekhi even getting that starting spot at right guard. Of course, Jordan Davis didn't care who it was, with ESP pointing out an impressive play from the Dancing Bear to begin team drills, as JD blew through the O-line to hit Saquon and register as safety. To make matters worse, that was after Becton committed a false start to back the offense up, so yeah. But that wasn't all, since JD ended up creating pressure on nearly sacking Jalen a few plays later. Now again, the excuse could be made that the offense didn't have all their starters, but neither did the defense, with Jeff McClain sharing that CJ Gardner Johnson went in to get checked out for an injury, but thankfully came back and seemed okay, yet was held out on the sideline. And in case you're curious who was backing him up, that would be James Bradbury, as he actually got a considerable amount of time with the first-team reps. So I might have been wrong about JB, and I'll have no problem admitting that if and when he ends up making the roster. I just really didn't feel like he would. Either way, though, the feeling when CJ got injured was somewhat telling about the depth at safety, since, Sidney Brown is still working to come back. So for real, literally one injury makes you start questioning things, or at least it did for me, so it brings up the question of, should we sign someone? I know you're going to say, please don't bring up that former Broncos safety unless it's actually happening, except it's actually a different one, with the Broncos announcing their plans to release safety Caden Stearns. And sure, just a few Denver nuggets on the 24-year-old. Stearns was a 5th-round pick by the Broncos in the 2021 draft, which just so happened to be when Fangio was coaching, who obviously points to him seeing the potential. And as PFN's Anthony DeBona pointed out, over the course of 241 coverage snaps with Fangio, Stearns allowed just 1 touchdown while recording 2 interceptions. Plus, in only 6 pass rushing snaps, he had 3 pressures and another 2 sacks. So yeah, definitely really promising, plus he'd be a much cheaper option than Simmons for some additional depth. However, it's a fair question to ask, why on earth is Denver getting rid of him? Well, unfortunately, the DB tore his patella tendon on the 2nd snap of the season opener last season, and ended up missing the rest of the year. And with mixed reports of a delayed rehab timeline, my assumption is that Denver didn't see him being able to pan out quickly enough. Anyway, I'm kind of leaning away from this one, given the fact that we don't really know about the medicals, but how do y'all feel about Stearns as a potential backup? Now, I will say that even if they stay put, you can't help but to love the change in the mindset.
He's big on playing football and playing it physical, so if that says anything, he wants us to tackle as legal as possible, but want to hit somebody as hard as you can.
I was going to ask you, what do you think the identity of the defense will be when it all comes together? Is that it?
Oh, that's exactly what it is. We play football as a defensive unit to oppose our will on people, and I don't think we did a great job last year, but this year we have a different mindset, and we have the guys in the room that can do it. Especially Vic, he is an old school football coach, and he shows us tackling clips all the time of like how it used to be, and obviously legal hits now that look illegal but are legal, and you want to mimic that as much as possible, because that's the game. It's legal in between the lines as long as you do it right. The thing is, I feel like you have to have the people in the room that already have that physical aspect to it. You can't just give it to them on this week I'm going to be physical. No, you got to come with that mindset every day, and I feel like we have the guys in the room that can do that.
Come on, you can't tell me this group doesn't have a bit more confidence. Let me know in the comments, and let's get back to camp, with the team drill still in play. And Tanner McKee threw another pick. Although this time, according to Andrew DeCecco, the ball hit Will Shipley in the hands, but popped up into the air as cornerback Shon Stevens made the play and returned it back for a pick 6. Not gonna lie, Shipley didn't have the best practice, as ESP shared that just a few plays later, Nakobe Dean wrecked Ship by pushing him all the way back into Pickett and getting a sack. As I'll continue to say, I know this is just camp, but this will be a really big area for me watching, especially in the preseason. Since remember, Rashad Penny wasn't going to see much action anyway, but his atrocious pass protection completely sealed his fate last year. But sorry, yes, here I am talking about last year when CJ said not to. However, keeping it with this year's camp, Brandon Lee Gouton said you have to call out Dean for his positives as a blitzer and run defender, which Fangio would agree, he's just not afraid to keep it real.
I thought Nakobe had the first few days of practice, I thought he played really good, and took a step back a little bit in the stadium practice, but overall he's been doing really good.
I just got to say, it's so refreshing to hear Vic's brutal honesty about what he's seeing. Just like he shared that Zack Baun is somewhat light, but he has to make up for that with his athleticism. And the times where he hasn't been afraid to call out Devin White, although I've said this before, but I think the linebacker unit and dominance there starts with Devin White. And while I'm believing in White to make a difference, I'm also believing in Johnny Wilson to make a difference, with Rook getting more reps with the ones and Jalen Hurts finding him on a really nice deep throw for a big gain, as Johnny used his size to make the catch on an extended grab. And yeah, right about that moment, I was getting pretty excited, but then the offense suffered a potential setback, with a couple reporters sharing that Mekhi Becton had to come off and was getting looked at by the trainer, followed by Lane Johnson, but thankfully that was due to just some rest. By the way, shout out to AJ Smith because he suggested that it was actually a snap count for Becton, so an intentional pulling of the guard. Sorry, I know that's terrible, but anyway, I will keep you posted on how we figure that out. Anyway, what that did was make Brett Toth the right guard and Fred Johnson the right tackle, yet it didn't take too long before Cam Jurgens went inside toward the end of practice. leaving your starting lineup of Mailata, Dickerson, Brett Toth at center, Matt Hennessy at right guard, and Fred Johnson at right tackle.
No, don't like that.
Yeah, that's not going to do it, so hopefully the guys are okay, and obviously you never want to see injuries like this. By the way, Brooks Korbina ended up sharing that there was no issue with Cam, so thankfully we dodged a bullet. Yet I don't blame the defense for taking advantage, with Zack Baun sniffing out a screenplay to Saquon Barkley and hitting him right as the ball arrived.
Yeah, it's just a lot of eyes, a lot of eye discipline. You have more coverage responsibility, so having your eyes in the right spot is a big thing. And then physicality, because when you're playing edge, you just got one guy in front of you, you know, and there's maybe 3 things that can happen off the ball. There's a lot of different aspects that can happen. So just having good eyes and being physical is the main point.
All right, you guys know I'm high on Baun. Plus, with Sirianni talking about his toughness and bringing it every day, he's clearly a front runner, even if Fangio's not ready to commit just yet.
Yeah, it means a lot. We talk about it a lot, and it's one thing to talk about it, but it's a next level to do it and do it consistently. That's something that's always been in my game. I always pride myself on that. I'm a hustle guy. From being a special teamer, it's all about effort and tenacity and always moving around, so that's always been part of my game. I appreciate that, Coach.
How do you show that?
Just running, getting to the ball, physicality. I just love this game so much, and it'd be a shame if I didn't put everything to the test. Toughness is not only physical, but it's mental. And I think once you master the mental side, the rest of your game can really develop. And it's always something that I've had to work at. I haven't always been this way, but you just grind and you work at it, and then just hearing what different coaches want, and it's always toughness. It keeps coming up, and I was like, that's the player I need to be, and that's the player I want to be. So that's what happened.
Pure effort, pure heart. A person that loves the game of football. Sticking his head in every play. On downhill runs, just. Man, a guy that's just going out there being relentless, man, and I knew that about him, being with the Saints, he was on special teams doing it, and now it's just translating over to being, D versus D, O, so he's just letting his light shine.
I will be fair and say that Baun's been out of position a couple times and has missed a few opportunities in the run support, but his ability at coverage has been better than Nakobe's. Which is why it's going to be fascinating to see how all the guys play in the preseason game against Baltimore. As Fangio wasn't entirely committal saying it's Sirianni's decision, but he does like the idea of seeing the starters out there. Although without some of its O-line starters, Moro Ojomo took advantage, as Andrew DeCecco said the former 7th-round pick stood out for the 2nd day in a row, especially with his physicality. Like, good for them, but as we've seen, Jalen Hurts and the offense are pretty much unstoppable. With QB1 and Devontae making what Ted McManus would call the play of the day, tossing a dime right down the sideline with pressure in his face to Smitty. And then, shout out to Martin Frank, but not long after, Hurts found Johnny Wilson for a touchdown in the red zone, where he faked the handoff, rolled right, and then hit Wilson over Keely Ringo, as Johnny had to contort his body on the ball that was a bit behind him while showing strong hands to reel it in. I mean, how great is that? And like I've said, yes, it doesn't really matter who on this offense contributes, but it's great to see that everyone's on the same page.
What's the most important thing? And that's winning football games. And I think we all have that mindset. We want to go out there and win, so we're willing to do whatever it takes to win games. And I think last time I was up here, I said there might be some games where I got to watch Devontae and AJ and Dallas and all those guys and Jalen throw the ball 40 times and throw for 400 yards, and I got to buckle up and pass pro as best as I can. And there's going to be some games I might have to carry the ball 25, 30 times. When your goal is to go out there and win and compete for a championship, and that's actually what you want to do, it doesn't matter how you get it done. And I think we have those guys that's in this locker room who share that same mindset. And when you're all playing a high level, if you want accolades, that kind of comes along with it. But the main thing is to win football games, and I think we have that mindset here.
Obviously, it goes both ways. For example, JB being willing to move wherever, and Q playing mostly in the slot, which wasn't exactly always part of the plan.
No, that wasn't part of the equation in that, because I do think when you, drafted a corner, per se, in the first round, he needs to be a corner. And then if he can play inside, that's a bonus. And this is a bonus right now that he's been able to play inside. We still really like him as a corner, though, too.
Probably not surprising, but it is interesting to get Fangio's take on what changed or kind of the viewpoint in terms of Q eventually moving to the slot. Anyway, team drills wrapped up with McKee hitting Ty Davis-Price for a score, as McKee will no doubt look to push Pickett for that QB2 spot. Also, some other notable takeaways from Tim McManus was that Britton Covey was active again, sharing a nice inside-out move that shook him loose of a defender for a sizable gain down the left side. And then rookie Ainias Smith, who's had a slow start to camp with too many drops, had another one today. Now, as far as special teams, we got a glimpse of what it appears the Eagles may do, with Isaiah Rodgers and Kenny G getting first reps, Will Shipley and John Ross getting second-team reps, and Ainias Smith and Britton Covey third. while Jake Elliott and Braden Mann both practiced the specialized kickoff. Oh yeah, and for those asking about Cooper DeJean, the Rook continues to rehab his injured hamstring, but most likely will be out a couple weeks before he's 100%. Yet it is nice to just see him on the field. And I mean, while we're keeping up the positive vibes, it was also great to see Jalen Hurts driving around Nick Sirianni and Big Dom after practice. Oh, but remember, some of the media would have you believe they have a strained relationship.
Think about it. Watch the angles. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. You're better than that.
Anyway, practice is back again tomorrow, but curious, what's your biggest concern coming away from today's practice? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, this has been the Philly Special.